All right, on this episode of the 520 Collective Show, should Christian artists be doing remixes of mainstream records? That's definitely a question. We're going to try to answer it with some help from DJ and artist El Val, who's hanging out with us. So you know it's going to be fun. Let's go.
Message heavy, don't prime show, they not ready. Race against the time like four wheels and hands ready. Keep it steady, beat it hard and they barely give them ears and hear the truth in the light. Throw confetti, message heavy, don't prime show, they not ready. Race against the time like four wheels and hands ready. Keep it steady, beat it hard and they barely give them ears and hear the truth in the light. Throw confetti, just a flip of the watch, it's game time. Flip of the watch, it's game time. Vibes, just a flip of the watch, it's game time. 520, flip of the watch, it's game time. Just a flip of the watch, it's game time. 20, flip of the watch, it's game time. 5 to the flip of the watch, it's game time. 520, flip of the watch, it's game time. 520.
520 Collective. Listen every day or get robbed. I'm kidding.
Just be grateful for what you actually have.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the 520 Collective Show podcast. Before we jump into the conversation, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor and our episode producers. This month's episode is being sponsored by Kingdom Club Apparel. You can check out their new line of summer tees. I've really had my eye on that Kingdom Club flyer shirt. Super dope. There's a party going down on 7th Avenue in New Jerusalem, and the entry fees have already been paid, so spread the word. Take a look at all the different designs, see which one's your favorite, scoop them up, and support the team over at Kingdom Club Apparel. I've also got to give a shout out to our episode sponsors, including Harry Etienne and Charles Mays. Shout out to you guys for helping make the show possible. Listen, if you find value in the show and you wish to put value back in, you can become a show producer as well. Just simply make a donation of your choice at 520collective.com/donate, or become a premium member of our Substack newsletter. Just go to 520collective.com/Substack to get signed up. We've got lots of great content available for our premium members, including our new exclusive premium members only series, Rewind, where we take a look at important albums within Christian hip hop history. Our first installment is available now. It takes a look at Spring of the Songbird by Sivion. Lots of great episodes of Rewind coming soon, so make sure you get plugged in, become a premium member now. All right, I guess that's about it. It's time to get into this month's episode. Let's go. Dude, I'm subscribed to you. I listen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang, son.
Did you hear this week? I already cracked the book open on this subject that we're about to tap into.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're doing, man. Trying to get the scoop. I see how it is, man.
I'm trying to. It turns out there's a lot to scoop. We'll find out in a minute.
Okay.
Oh boy.
But I feel like Zero gonna get into some stuff I'm not prepared for. But
I'm just saying, though. I think he's coming loaded.
What is that
dude.
not the case?
Full clips.
Right? But man, right now, KD, man, we gotta dive into this word. It's that time of the episode. What you got for us for this show, man?
So, for today, this evening, or whatever time it is that you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to this, we're going to go to an oldie but a goodie, if you will. And we're going to look at Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. And we'll definitely tie this into our topic on tonight. But we just kind of wanted to visit the scripture in particular. Again, it's one that we're all well familiar with. And I'm reading this out of the King James Version. Proverbs 3 and 5, trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding. Verse 6, in all thy ways acknowledge him and he shall direct thy paths. I think it's a very understated and overlooked scripture because I think we all believe we're so familiar with it. But there's a lot of things that are in the Word of God that we take as suggestion, verse, commandment. And I think that this is one of those scriptures that it's either you do this or you don't do this. It's not God's advice, but this is really one of those access points in order for us to be able to tap into everything that God has set aside for us in this life. And so vitally important. The way that we begin to get into the will of God and the different things that are tied to God's will for our life is when we apply this particular scripture to our daily practice. All right. So, trust in the Lord with all thy heart, lean not to thy own understanding. Things that, again, we don't do as often as we ought to. In all our ways, acknowledge him. And a lot of times, it's easy to fall short of this particular part of the scripture. But one of the things that I love about salvation is the fact that God really does all the work for us. He takes the guesswork out, right? If I trust God, then the ending will be what he says it is. And a lot of times we get caught up in how things look, what they appear to be, how they feel. And we don't do enough of running to God. We'll run to everybody else. We'll run to social media. We'll put a post out. We'll run to the neighbor. We'll run to the corner store. We get advice from all of these different places, but not from the one who's authored our salvation, who's the author and finisher of our faith. And so this scripture just really reminds us to kind of come home, and for whatever it is that we think that we want to do, we can ask God. And a lot of times we don't do that because we don't want his answer. But we can ask God whatever it is. There are no dumb questions with God. And people may say that and not mean it, but God gives us to know that there's not one thing that we can't take to him and get insight and revelation from. So I just want to make sure that we brought that out on tonight and tie that in. Please, guys, go ahead and chime in on this. I
mean, Katie, there's a chance that I've asked some questions that God thinks is kind of dumb. I'm just going to tell you that right now. I'll own that, man. That's me. You know what I'm saying? But here's what I find interesting, Katie. I mean, first of all, of course, love that you selected this for this episode. But I find it interesting that's like every selection that you make, man, for this diving into the word. Like, there's always something either before or right after the verses you picked that I'm like, oh man, hey, we got to talk about this too, though, right? And again with this one, because like you get into verse 7. What's the first thing verse 7 says? Be not wise in your own eyes.
Yeah,
dude. How many people is that applied to? Oh man, I'm sitting back. I'm taking it in, man. I just wanted to add that to the conversation. So, Zero, you got something? Hey,
I said I know I'm dumb, so I don't appear to be wise in my own eyes.
Well, okay, as long as you know it, man. I wasn't pointing actual fingers at you, but metaphorical, subliminal fingers.
The beauty about this scripture to me is that there is the whole world of choices, all of the freedom in the world of options and choices that you can make, and yet the man that turns around and asks God, well, what do you think I should do? That's the guy that's actually doing it right.
Yeah.
And all of the controversies that we end up having, arguments, controversies, a lot of the problems, not all the problems, but a lot of the problems we have come from people saying, well, I can do this. I have the right. Yeah, that's true. But just because you can do something, should you do it? Did you ask God?
Come on.
So, like, when we think we got it all figured out, and then we run into a wall, and that's when we turn to ask God for help. And sometimes it's too late. I'm sorry, let me retract that. It's never too late to ask God for help. But sometimes we've already screwed up the situation that we're not going to obtain the favorable outcome that we were pursuing all along.
Yeah.
And that is something that God allows us to do if that's the path we want to take. You want to take the path of destruction? He'll rescue you, but that doesn't always mean you're going to like what happens when you have to deal with those consequences.
Yep.
But the guy that turns to God and says, what should I do? What do you think? I think that's the guy who's always making the best choice.
Yeah, man. I feel that. I feel that a lot, man. Because, like, I know for us, like, it's not easy. So a lot of time, right? Like it is a lot of money's tied or whatever the case may be, right? And there's sometimes where it's like, dang, can we ever catch a break? Like like there's always something happening, and yet even though that's the case, right? Like at the end of the day, again, like kind of like what you guys are saying, it might not be working out the way that I would have preferred it to work out, but like stuff always seems to work out somehow, and the whole not leaning on our understanding of the situation, right? Because we might have made the wrong choice if it was completely up to us, So yeah, no, I'm with you, and I think we need to take the seriousness of this as well and apply it to what we do as like Christian creatives, right? I think we want to try to say, hey, we're creative and let that kind of create maybe some loose boundaries in there, because we want to be able to be creative and not have these restrictions on what we do on as far as that creativity goes. But man, whenever we are put in a position where we are doing it as a representation of what we believe and who we believe in, we have to be willing to go and do it a certain way if that's the way he needs it to go for his message to get out, right? But yeah, man, love it. Proverbs chapter 3 verses 5 and 6. I want to know what y'all think about it. Hit us up, social media, through Substack, however you want to reach out to us. Y'all know how to get to us. Man, we are joined by El Val here on the 520 Collective Show, Eric Boston, KD the Vessel, Zero for Hire. So Val, man, we were talking about it before we got going here. You and I have been plugged into each other for a few years, I think. It seems like at this point. I know we got...
Yeah, man.
Yeah. We did some press release work and just different stuff, and being able to support you here on the platform, which has been really awesome, for our end. And I know some people may not be as familiar with you that's currently listening to the show, but they need to get familiar with it, right? So this is your chance, man, to brag a little bit on yourself. Tell the people about El Val, man.
Yeah, so, I mean, man, I kind of summarize a whole bunch of history in just a few minutes.
Oh, you got time, man.
He put you on visitor at Church Front Street, bro. Go for it, man. Like, stand up and announce where you been and where you're going, all of that.
So, I mean, since the age of 12, man, I just jumped in, got my first pair of turntables. At the age of 14, the Lord called me to ministry. Didn't know what that looked like or what that entailed. I just said yes. They come from a Christian home, and I'm from nowhere, bottom of the map, bottom of the barrel. And I just kept saying yes, and just doing things out of a servant's heart. Long story short, man, I did my first event when I was 14. Fast forward a couple years, I was just touring. I mean, you name it. I got to the point where I was doing over 150 events a year. I just opened a ton of doors. Got to live a lot of cool stuff. Since I started at 12, about the end of the vinyl era, by the time I was in my 20s, all the scratch DJs had kind of aged out and moved on to other things. So there wasn't a lot of guys left that were in the scratch world that loved the Lord. And so that just opened up a lot of doors for me to jump on with all these rap hip hop artists to do their tours. At the same time, always grinded on a lot of different avenues and creative aspects. And because of that, I was able to travel solo as well. Just been on this journey, man. Living in Florida, doing paraministry work, still doing traveling, just not as hard with music. I still travel a lot, but that's another story. But yeah, man, I just saying yes to God. Still figuring things out. Still learning. I'm still a student of the arts. I'm still a student in ministry. I'm really looking forward to this post-pandemic world where we go back to normal.
Yeah, man. And dude, I know you're trying to be humble about it, but I'm gonna get you to to speak on it just a little bit, man.
Name drop,
yeah,
bro.
exactly. Because because here's the thing: when people hear this and they say, "Oh, okay, so this guy has toured," it's easy to say, "Oh, well, maybe just some local stuff or maybe some guys that we don't know." No, like here's the thing: this dude has been the DJ for your favorite artist in Christian hip hop, man. Come on with it.
I'll tell you the story how it happened. How it started. But I was working at a church doing video work, still doing events. I got a random call one day. It was like a Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. Guy gets on the phone and says, "Hey, man, I have a tour coming to your city. I've heard great things about you. Could you be at this location Friday night?" And mind you, this is Wednesday, a couple days out. I was slammed with stuff at the church. I was exhausted, but I've always loved music and I've always loved events. I said, yes, I'll be there. Shoot me the address. Looked at the map. It's probably like an hour and some change, an hour and a half drive. I didn't look into it because I was too busy. Friday rolled around. I didn't even have the time to cut my hair. But I just got in the car and went. I show up to this venue. Come to find out, it's the Heroes for Sale tour randomly, and it's sold out. So I do the opening thing, and I that night I think I rocked out with like Swoop and Benja. And at this event, he had a guest artist named Tadashi. Tadashi was at the end of his sabbatical. After the event, Tadashi went backstage and he was like, "Bro, you're really, really dope. I like what you do. I'm getting ready to come back on the road. Would you be interested?" I was like, "Yeah, man." I didn't think much of it because I've heard these kind of conversations before. Gave him my information, went home, back to whatever I was doing. At the same time, I started getting the first ever out of state inquiries. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to pull this off. This is springtime, so I'm getting a bunch of inquiries for the summer. I go and I talk to the pastor. I'm like, "Hey, like I'm getting all the inquiries for the summer. I don't know how I can pull this off, but I really want to pull this off." Pastor's like, "Hey, bro, go do your thing, figure it out." But I say yes to everything. I haven't heard back from T-Dot. And a few months later, the church, I found out the church has some financial crisis. And so I just kind of said, "Hey, I'm going to jump on these events and I'll figure it out. When I get back at the end of the summer, I'll see what happens." So I literally exited. I finished out, I think it was like on a Thursday. And then 2 days later, I jumped on a plane, which ended up being like the next 8 years of just touring. Yeah. That summer.
Yo, that's that's like the Christian rap equivalent of "I'm going to the store to get a gallon of milk."
Yeah, you end up.
Never come back.
Dad went to get milk.
Oh my goodness, 8 years. Man.
So I'm at a camp. And I get a call from this guy named Biz. Biz, I had met him when we were in high school. We were both from Dallas, the Dallas area. He's like, "Hey, bro, I can't make this event. It's in Houston. Can you go fill for me with T-Dot?" I'm like, "Yeah, bro, I got you." Sends me the info. I get there. Man, it's just this massive festival called Blooming by the Bay, which a radio station back in the days called Angel Radio used to put on. And T-Dot was the headliner. So I do this event. I meet this guy named Derek Miner who was there. Derek is like, "Bro, like, do you tour? Are you touring with an artist?" I'm like, "I'm traveling. I'm down. Let me know what you need help with." And then literally like 2 weeks later, I'm traveling with Derek. And he had just finished up working on, I think it was like, I can't remember what album it was, Minorville or something like that, but it hadn't dropped yet. But he was getting like the tour ready. So I remember just flying to Nashville, spending like 2 weeks with him, putting the whole set together with visuals and all that. I finished that tour up at the end of that year. And then finally I get a call from T-Dot and he's like, "Bro, you ready?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm ready." So that following year was wild. Like, he got back on the road. Everyone wanted to hear T-Dot's story. Because mind you, T-Dot had experienced some really bad tragedy in his personal life with the passing of his son, Chase. So T-Dot comes back to the scene and it's just like wild. Like, I mean, I remember just doing so many, I remember waking up in cities saying like, "Where am I?" Like I couldn't remember what city we were in because we were just like literally flying from one city to the next, to the next, to the next. Got to live that out. And through that, Tadashi told Lecrae about me. So I ended up jumping on some tours with Lecrae. I got to do the tour for the troops in the Middle East, for the U.S. Army, which is wild. I mean, I'm doing events in places where I can't even take a photo because it's all like bro, like classified information. I got to jump on some short runs with artists in the West Coast, Propaganda, shout out to Prop, man, you name it. And then once that whole I don't know if it was like a wave or whatnot, After that, I jumped on the group out of Miami called Social Club Misfits. Had a lot of fun with Social Club. Social Club wasn't doing the stadium events Lecrae was, but they were doing grassroots venues with like hardcore fans. I mean, we were doing events and they would get like 3 encores. Like, it was just so fun. Did that. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that happened in between. Got to jump on with KJ as well. Met KJ through that. KJ is still a big bro to me. Man, you name it. Stadiums, arenas, backyards, schools, churches. Slept in nice hotels, slept on floors, slept on couches, air mattresses, you name it. It just went. Just kept saying yes to God and doors kept opening. So, yeah, man, it was a wild ride. Wild ride.
Bro, when is the book coming out?
My wife always tells me, like, when are you going to do it? And I'm like, I just need to do it. She did
or like something. Get connected with TMZ and do like a tell-all or something. Though. Like, when is the story coming out, bro? That's a crazy run, man.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there was more like God stories. I mean, there is some like junk stuff. I mean, I got to see some junk happening before I knew about it. But I mean, definitely the God stories outweigh, some of the
for sure.
Some of the wild stuff that I got to see.
What's the best backstage story?
We were in West Texas, this festival called Rock the Desert. And this was the first festival that booked Social Club Misfit. And that night, Andy Mineo was headlining. The runner-up was KB. The opener was Social Club Misfit. And I'm backstage, and I just see these two. Now, mind you, I'm 6 feet. Like, that's a big Mexican. Mexicans don't grow that much. I'm 6 feet. These two big dudes walk backstage. One of them had white eyes, dreadlocks.
Like all the way white, like Marilyn Manson video?
Yes. Dreadlocks. And then his bodyguard, which I think I don't know if it was his bodyguard or somebody in his band, another big dude, big scary dudes, walk backstage. I'm like, my initial thought was like we gonna die, like we finna die. I realized it was Brian Headwelch from Korn.
Oh, wow.
Brian was there because he had heard about Andy. Brian wanted to see Andy perform. So he pulled up to this hip-hop case. He was at the festival, but on a different night. But he showed up that day just to watch Andy. Brian Headwelch, I don't know if you know much about Korn. When I was a kid, Korn was like huge in the city. Not so much in my community, but I remember seeing all the shirts and just like the whole culture of this, like, I don't know if it's offensive, but we used to call it like freaks. I don't know what the word is. But
yeah, they didn't really have a word for them. Yeah. That's pretty close though.
Well, I mean, they kind of labeled themselves that, right? Because I mean, the Korn had one of their big songs was like "Freak on a Leash."
It's not like Juggalos or nothing.
Yeah, but the "Freak on a Leash." So this was that. So this was obviously like when
like Limp Bizkit and stuff was big.
Well, but I'm saying this is like when Brian had linked up with the Whosoevers. I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, this was probably like 14, 15, something like that.
Oh, that's when Head became a Christian, ain't it?
Yeah.
Okay, I remember hearing about that.
When I was a kid, I used to listen to a lot of POD, and there was a night where we got to go to El Paso and open up for POD, and then I got to meet Sonny, and Sonny to me as a kid was like kind of a role model, if you will, because I used to always look at these artists, and then whoever was like of Mexican descent, I used to be like, yo, he's Mexican. And then Sonny from POD was actually Mexican. It was a big deal. So when I met him, it was like, man, I didn't show it, but I almost like fanboyed a little bit.
Hey, dude, I feel you on that, man, because I love POD, man. And like, when I was telling you about Cornerstone, that music festival, right? Like, so like in the early 2000s, POD played Cornerstone like every year. You know, they were always one of the headline. But the year that I went, they weren't there. And I was so frustrated, but I actually got to see them a few years back in Joplin, Missouri. I mean, I like this little bar, dude. Like, I mean, like literally, like I was like feet away from them performing, you know? It was so cool.
Oh, bro. He still got it, man. He's an older dude now, but man, he still got it.
Yeah, man. I'd love to talk to him.
It's cool seeing him now. Like, he's really open about his faith. I see him promoting his church services on his social media account. It was really dope seeing him. And like now I think he's like darn near like grandpa stage. But
Yo, doesn't dude from POD do like a bunch of street preaching now?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm pretty sure I've seen him in some street preaching videos.
Well, he does.
I might be wrong. I'll look that up.
He does stuff with the Whosoevers, and they got all kinds of different ministry that they do. So.
Well, not Brian Headwelch, but Sonny.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like Sonny.
They're in the same group.
Well, so the Whosoevers is like an organization. It's not like a group.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like a ministry organization.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't keep up too much with him when I got older, but I mean, I saw the whole Whosoever's thing. I got to meet what's her name? She was part of like Flyleaf or something like that. It was a band.
Well, I remember her.
Is it?
I don't remember her name.
Lacey Strom,
yeah,
or something like that.
Yeah.
I
So
like
when I
stuck
first
my
started
wife
doing
backstage to meet her during Big Ticket Festival one year. She was like in a real bad mood.
You weren't supposed to say that part, bro.
I mean,
I
edit that out, Eric.
I doubt she's listening. It's fine. We'll put that on the paid subscribers version.
That'll be the beginning bumper.
There's a worship leader in California. She's one of the, I would say, leaders at one point of like the charismatic movements in California. What was her name? Kim Walker Smith.
You're talking about Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus culture.
Yeah.
She came to Dallas one time, and the guy who booked her had me open up, mind you, like two different worlds almost. And
Yeah.
man, bro, when I look back at that footage, I was like, what happened? Like, it was so lit. Like, there was people crowd surfing on the top balcony of that venue. I think it had to do.
Concert?
Yeah, but it wasn't. No, it was just her. It was just her. It wasn't Jesus culture. It was just her.
Gotcha.
I think I had to do something with like the people that wanted to see her in Dallas. They just wanted to throw a party essentially. So I guess the guy who put the thing together knew. So, but when I remember thinking to myself, like, man, this is really south really fast for me. And it was like one of the most memorable nights of just like how many EDM guys or urban guys get to open for worship bands like that happen. But anyways, that was definitely a night for the books. But there's so much, man. There's so many stories. It's hard for me to remember them all. I'll be doing something random and I have a random memory that comes to my mind and I just laugh about it. But yeah, there's I can go on all night about it.
Yeah, man.
Well, backstage stories.
Yeah, but I want to make sure that we hit on, because I mean, so now you've been doing some of your own music as well, right? So you've been doing music for a long time, but I mean, you like over the last few years have really been dropping music, and what I find really cool about what you're doing is, yes, like everything you put out has like these hip hop elements involved, but you are not just like staying in the hip hop box with what you're doing personally, right? So talk a little bit about the music that you've been putting out.
I mean, I look at music just like an art in general. It's easy to like do the carbon copy thing where you just kind of like, well, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel because the wheel works. Yeah, that's fine. But for me, the way I see it is like the art has to be a reflection of who you are. Who God
thank you for listening to the show. No, it's not over. There's more great conversation on the way. We're going to take a quick break while our guy Darius Mullen gives you a rundown of the music that made waves this past month. Be sure to stay locked in for the rest of the episode. Let's go.
Hey everyone, it's Darius back again with 5 Wavemaker releases from July 2023. First off, we've got the newest album by hip-hop collective Shadow of the Locust. That's called A Mighty Army Cometh Volume 2, and it's 23 tracks of pure, hard-hitting hip-hop. We actually got to talk with some of the guys from Shadow of the Locust about the project on a live stream recently, so make sure to check out the FiveTwenty Collective YouTube channel for that. July also brought us another fantastic offering by Sivion and Malix. This time they recruited Braille and InfoRed to join them. That song is called Come Through Me. Next up, it's a meeting of the Jareds on the new tape JJ, out July 7th. That's got Jared Allstar on the rhymes and Jared Hicks on the beats. Ya Mean by Mike Wise just goes hard. What can I say? Check it out. And finally, A New Groove by Q-Flow, Scribe Music, and TLS is a fun, bouncy one that released on July 21st. As always, make sure to check out www.five20collective.com for more fresh picks. And as always, I've been Darius Mullen. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah. This does not make me want to listen to your music. The vessel, Zero for Hire. I'm Eric Boston. Not that you're worried about that, but we are back here and we still got our guy El Val joining us on the 520 Collective phone line. What's up, KD?
Yo.
I guess we got to talk about something, don't we? But no, hey, we
you had to be there.
So we have a question. What, Zero? Go ahead. Sorry, I'll wait my turn. Zero, go ahead.
No. I was cheering you guys on. Digging this hole.
Okay.
Oh, let's keep going. I'm gonna start a petition to create a burner account for Eric Boston, and we're gonna call it CHH Moses. So if you get a friend request or an ad from Twitter,
what does that mean?
CHH Moses, that's gonna be Eric Boston's burner account.
What does that? I can't grow a real beard, KD.
You don't have to, man. But you try to bring opposing sides together, man. Moses was meek, dude. So we're gonna celebrate and push that meekness, man.
If you say so.
That's beautiful.
CHH Moses. Twitter.
Okay, so
at CHH Moses.
So we've got a question.
Connected to Chat GPT and it'll post for you,
dude. We've got. Okay, this is ridiculous. We've got a question that we've got to try to answer here. No, the question is though. And Val, I'm glad you are here and able to join us for this episode, man, because I know you're going to have some insight here, that I definitely don't have. These other guys probably more so than me as well. But should a Christian artist remix a mainstream record? That's the question. Now, we're not saying that we have a bias going into this. We're just asking the question. We're just seeing where it goes. So KD, why not throw it to you, man, and you tell us where we're going to start here, man. Should a Christian artist remix a mainstream record?
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to volley this over to Zero, and I want him to start letting off that clip that he promises that he has.
I don't know if I'm ready for that.
When I say clip, I mean paper clips from stacks of paper full of information, people.
Dude, I feel...
get your minds out of the street.
I feel like Zero's going to talk a lot right now, and I'm just going to be like, okay. Because I'm not gonna...
It's not all going to be coherent either. I'm making arguments on both sides.
Let's go. All right, so let's do it like this. So I'll run back just some of my personal history in the space. So 2004, and I'm dating myself as well, Val. When sites like Rapzilla were just kind of getting up and running, when it was cool, Rapzilla used to have like the little charts and stuff like that, and a lot of independent artists, man, were just kind of throwing their hats into the ring. A lot of people back in the day, a lot of early CHH, so this early stage of Christian rap, it was a lot of mixtapes. It was a lot of mixtapes over secular beats. It is what it is. Actually, it's kind of how I got my start in this space. I was a part of a group called No Judas. We put out a mixtape back in the day, bro. And it was full of stuff that we either chopped up. We worked with a DJ at the time, and we would go record at his crib, or it was tracks that were already there from artists who would put out. So we We did like, On Fire, Lloyd Banks. We wrote a song called Burn Up. There was just a number of different records. And at the time, it seemed innocent enough to enter into the space that way and then be able to take that out. You're working with kind of tunes and melodies and songs that people are already familiar with. The problem with that becomes, as you grow, that these are songs that are already tunes and melodies that people are familiar with for the wrong reasons. And so it becomes a conflict of interest, right? From the artist standpoint, and we talk about trying to be strategic, etc., I want to go into a space where I can help pull the audience in so I can quote unquote get the message across, right? Becoming all things to all men, that I might save some. But by the same token, the lyrics to the original record, if that's all that people are going to be thinking about, because here's the thing, you go to these events, you do these songs that you've written to other people's music, and the people that you're doing these records for, they know the original song. And so they're not dancing to your song. You're not twerking to me singing about Jesus. You twerking to the artist who actually wrote this record. And you go. So when you leave my set, you're going to go back to the crib. You're going to go pop this in and you're going to listen to the original because you was like, yeah, what they did was cool, but I want to hear, the nasty lyrics and all this other stuff that's tied to, what I've become accustomed to. Right. So, I mean, it's but I will say this, and what I've learned, and I no longer do that. And don't get me wrong, I don't think it's wrong to sample from secular songs, but that's not really just kind of like the whole crux of what we're talking about in this particular episode. Remixing secular songs, and I know we try to do this thing, and we've talked about it. We talked about it when we were talking about like the intersections between hip hop culture and kingdom culture. What should stay? What should go? Can these things coexist, etc.? We try to do this thing where we talk about all of these things being redeemable, right? I can't remix bump and grind, but we're gonna try to do it though, right? You know what I'm saying? Like we think as though, oh man, I can do this. You can't make a remix to Your Body Is Calling. Your Savior's calling. You know what I'm saying? Distant love. You can't. You know what I mean? I'm gonna just be honest. But
KD,
this is the stuff that we try
you tell
to
me,
get away with.
Dude, you tell me
extreme,
you tell me like Bump and Pray ain't a
hold on, turn up.
Record.
Wait, hold on. Time out. You have apparently not seen clips that have run amok online with cats who have been in front of people at churches who have done remixes to R. Kelly songs and tried to add gospel music. Bro, listen.
Bro, I'm gonna dive down that rabbit hole tonight.
This is legit. I am not making this stuff up. All right. So again,
dude, he worked with Kirk Franklin. He's obviously fine.
You cannot remix "Feeling on Your Booty" and make it gospel. There's just certain things that you cannot redeem. Now, I will say this because I believe this with all my heart. Music was created by God. It belongs to Him as a vehicle of creative expression. Because all of these things are, right? And they're supposed to be things that are pointed back to Him. They're supposed to be ways that God has given us to be able to honor Him, to be able to express our relationship with Him. But what does man always do? We always taint the things that we begin with. So we pervert that original purpose and we start doing other stuff with it. And we make songs about people, places, things, and we give those people, places, and things godly attributes, and we give them admiration and adulation and things that should be given to God alone. And so that's where we start going amiss. But there are some records that should be recaptured because in some instances, if you sit back and you listen, the artist maybe didn't know how to express what they were feeling towards the Lord, and what they wrote should have gone to Him. But when the heart is tainted and the heart is divided, you can't give God what's due to Him. And so you end up writing stuff and giving things and giving feelings and emotions and expressions to, again, people, places, and things. So I think some things should be taken back and redirected to where they should have gone in the first place. But again, that's me. I'm going to tap out and please jump in, guys.
Okay, so I think Katie did a great job of sharing the spiritual side of things, if you will. But I think from a business perspective, I mean, you go back to when tangible median CDs, tapes were a primary source of listening. I think there could have been a benefit. I think for a lot of artists there was a benefit because you can gain a little, local following through a mixtape or a mix CD or whatever. I think now though it's kind of a waste of ammunition if you take a song or something that you work so hard on and put it on a mainstream record, a mainstream instrumental, because you're gonna get flagged for it. I mean, as soon as that thing goes up,
facts.
And it's not like you can publish. It's not like you can make royalties off anything. And who's actually buying CDs or tangible? I mean, some people are, but by far they're not gonna go. They're not looking for underground artists. They're not going to the local flea market. So I think now it just doesn't make sense. If you look at 10, 20 years ago, finding a producer was hard. You had to have money. You had to know somebody. You had to have an MPC and actually knew how to use it.
And the lease space hadn't blown up yet. The lease space had not blown up like it is now.
Shout out to all the type beat producers.
Nowadays, you can find a 15-year-old on FL Studio who's making bangers, and all they want to do is collab. DistroKid, I mean, you can do the splits. I mean, there's just really no excuse now to be going that route. I'm not even talking anything spiritual. I'm just saying from a business, marketing, branding perspective, it just doesn't make sense anymore.
True that.
Maybe one day we'll go back to tangible formats, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. In fact, we went from iTunes to even more. Like now we're just streaming. Like somebody bought an iTunes download.
Curse the day.
We're getting to the point where if you want to find an artist, you have to be super intentional about it, because what people search now is playlists. Which that's another conversation. I feel like that's kind of a death of culture type thing, because you have people that are fans of playlists versus fans of artists now. And they'll know a song, but they'll never look up the artist, which is weird to me.
It's the curator now. It's not the actual music. Yep.
Right. Well,
this is all Tim Cook's fault for dismantling the album.
I find it interesting what you're saying as far as like being able to link up with producers easier now, right? And that brings into a conversation that we see a lot in the CHH space, or I see it anyway on socials, but is this idea of, if you're a CHH artist, do you need to work with a Christian producer? Like, what do you guys say about that? Because I think it falls into the same category, right? Like, you shouldn't be rapping on them secular beats.
Can I say something real quick? I know Zero.
No, you're the guest, man.
So I got to see a lot of stuff backstage. I got to hang out at Capitol Records while they're recording stuff. Like, I realized a lot of it. I mean, I'm not sharing my opinion, my views necessarily, but what I'm going to say is a lot of your favorite Christian hip hop songs were written by non-believers. The hooks came in, they were pitched a certain way, the beats were pitched a certain way, and they saw, like, this works. I feel it. And they take that and make it theirs. And because they're believers, it turns into that. It turns into this Christian hip hop song. It turns into, if you'd have heard some of the original cuts, you'd be like, there's no way. But a lot of people don't understand how that works. And so
that's the industry. Yeah.
As I see it, the only reason to be strictly like, I'm only going to rap on Christian beats is out of loyalty. If you want to be loyal to the team, and that's a conviction that you had, and the word conviction kept coming up a lot, I can see that. I can see you have convictions, you want to be loyal to the team, you're only going to work with Christians, that's cool. But I think anything outside of loyalty, conviction, you kind of lean in real heavy into superstition. I don't think that we have any hardcore rules. Although
dude, I only rap on Christian beats, Zero. I only rap on Christian beats because
that's cool.
The mainstream, they're too mean when they hear what I put down. So.
They're too mean?
They're too mean whenever they hear my raps.
I disagree with you on that.
They're too mean when they hear my raps, man. They tell me to stop. They call me honky.
All right, so I'm not
like
going to ease into it. I'll just go from there. People don't like when you knock down their gods. Celebrities. I've been doing a lot of research, and we don't have time for me to ease into it. I'm doing this on my other show, like week by week. Celebrities are, in a sense, gods. They're like gods, and they have fans, followers, the same as gods do. And when you put that beat out, when you put that song out, that artist has a message. That message could be crafted by 14 people, because that's how the industry works. Now, when you become an artist, they tell you how to dress. They tell you what to say. They tell you how to talk, who to hang out with, what clothes, like everything, what to drive. Sometimes they tell you what to put in your songs. Talking about the record label, talking about the industry. So when other artists, especially Christian artists, start trying to be like the industry artists, the way I look at it now, you are dressing like a magician. You come out on stage, you got your tuxedo, and then you don't pull a rabbit out of the hat. People will say, what kind of magician is this? He's not even doing the tricks that he's supposed to. And that's the setup. That's the whole show and smoke and mirrors that we have in front of us. Is the artist comes out, he's dressed a certain way, he talks a certain way. You're supposed to say the thing that the industry wants you to say, because that's what the fans expect. That's the whole system. So then when you come out on Jay-Z's track like Bizzle did, and you eat him for lunch, the only people that's going to get down with that are the people that are okay with you knocking that God down off of his platform, which is some of the Christians. Because a lot of times when I did my research to see what kind of Christian remixes are out there, I came back across songs I tried to show to people in our CHH circles. Oh, they ain't feeling it. They don't like you knocking their gods down. And we assume that just because people are Christians, that they only serve the one God. But when somebody objectively does a great job remixing a song, and that's spiritual warfare. You're taking ground away from the devil. This is just how I see it. You're taking ground away from the devil. When you do a great job of knocking a God down and taking his platform and then putting Christ on top of it instead, people get angry. They don't like that. They don't like you knocking their gods down. So I'm not saying that you should necessarily do it every time, but I'm just saying what I recognize. When it happens, you're going to have a spiritual reaction, and people are going, because you're dressed like a magician. If you don't cast the spell, which is another thing that I'm starting to look at too, the way these words are arranged, they're meant to take you through a process to implant something in your mind and make you behave a certain way and create a specific reality in your life as the listener. That's like a spell. And if you don't cast the spell, you're doing something else. So you have a lot of guys out here who are magicians, or they look like magicians, but they're not casting spells. And so people say, I can't get with it, because they're expecting something else. That's kind of the short version of what I'm looking at right now. And to give you a historical reaction, or historical example, Martin Luther, the theologian, one of the things that he did was he took the popular bar songs at the time and he remade them into hymns. So this isn't like a new thing that we're talking about.
Facts.
Yeah, William Booth, the Salvation Army did the same thing in the 1800s. So yeah.
Thomas Dorsey, we're talking about the same thing there too.
One of the things you said about the labels, a lot of people don't know that every industry has a behind the curtain type thing. I remember when Lecrae was on Columbia, when he signed a deal with Columbia, and he was working on All Things Work Together album. The reason why that took so long was because they kept rejecting everything he would send. And I remember him being so frustrated because they literally had a hand in his art. They were manipulating his art. However you feel about that, it's a different conversation, but man, I remember thinking to myself, like, dang, I don't think I could ever have that kind of, I don't think I would willingly go that route, just because there's so many people trying to direct your art a different way, I applaud him, because at the end of the day, it's not like he went off the rails, well, maybe on some stuff, but anyways, that's another conversation.
Well, I recognize you as a true creative, though. You clearly have a strong mind by the way that you construct your art, and you talked about not fitting the mold early on.
Yeah.
Like, not a lot of people recognize that there even is a mold. And I'm not trying to insult people, but in order to be hypnotized, you can't have a stronger mind than the hypnotist.
For sure.
So that music comes out and it sets your emotionals plane, that repetition, that rhythm, and it puts you into a hypnotic state, and then you're primed for that artist to implant those thoughts in your mind.
But shout out to like a visual who will kind of do a response record to the Joyner Lucas or like the Same Love record. When we talk about stuff like that, like, I think it's dope. And Zero, even in your point, when we talk about like the spiritual warfare aspect of it, well, no, God's voice needs to be heard in regards to certain subjects. Especially if you have records where individuals are questioning God and questioning his existence and questioning, his care, his concern. Is God involved in the affairs and the matters of man, et cetera, et cetera? Well, hold on. Let's examine the fact that man is attempted to reject God and everything and do things his own way. So some of those records are necessary, and I applaud those because, again, it paints the necessary contrast, and we can't be afraid to do stuff like that. But then even kind of going back to Val's point, man, if I'm doing it just trying to gain traction, a lot of times that's not going to end up a good look long term for the body, if for no other reason than the fact that you don't own any of it. You don't. Everything is copywritten and tied back to the original artist. You own none of that.
But whenever I think about the question, like what are some of the positives though, especially if you are someone that is trying to find your audience, right? Like, if you do a good job and you put a record out that is familiar to people, I think there is a positive there where they are maybe going to be willing to give you a chance. They're going to, because it is familiar. You know, they're like, okay, hey, I know that. Let me hear what's going on. And if you do your thing, you could hopefully segue it into, okay, now here's what else I've got. Right, you know, check that out. Does it always work? I don't know about that. Val, what do you think on that end, man? Like, do you see positives in, potentially trying to put your own spin on someone else's art?
What's the name of that rapper from New Orleans?
Lil Wayne?
No, Christian rapper.
D1.
So, story about D1. We did a whole project using Lil Wayne beats, right? The name of the mixtape was supposed to be called Separated at Birth. Somehow Wayne's people caught wind of it, because I think starting to promote it, like, I'm gonna drop this, it's gonna be crazy. He got it like a cease and desist.
A desist letter.
Yeah. And none of that stuff ever came out. So, like, I'm thinking to myself, dang, all that work, and they shut that thing down. And I'm sure it would have been dope, but I think his platform was big enough for them to be like, nah, bro, you ain't finna put that out. So I just
wasn't it Isaac Hayes that created the remix?
I'm pretty sure it's Puff Daddy.
Well, yeah, right. Well, in all the looking at remixes, I've never seen a remix that got rejected by the masses that wasn't ideologically opposed to what the original song was. Like, all the successful ones are saying the same message. They're in the same spirit. Yeah. I think that is a deeper issue.
Right. It's when you come against the original, right, and you paint that other picture, the opposite, the contrast, that there's a problem.
I think if you have a equal or bigger platform, you can pull that off.
Facts.
But I think if you're trying to, like, redirect a Michael Jackson song, you have no chance. Like, there's no way. Like,
don't
the
do
platform
it,
is just so massive. So I think a lot of the stuff that was said here, I think it's good enough for someone to be like, yeah, I'm not going that route. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but there's enough here to be like, it's not smart. It's probably not the smartest thing to do.
Count up the cost.
Yeah.
Okay, let me put the same question in a slightly different way, because at one point, when, especially for Christian hip hop, right, when we look at it through that lens, when we were trying to gain acceptance, when artists were trying to get that relevancy intact, right? Was it perhaps a wise choice at that point compared to now, where it seems like maybe we've arrived to a certain level of, okay, like, cause there's a lot of people, especially like when you're maybe not the top tier mainstream hip hop, right? But when you're talking about, that more like grassroots underground scene, man, a lot of the Christian artists are accepted in those circles at this point, right? Cause they're just like, hey, they're dope. Does that, what do you think of it, looking at it like from that kind of point of view, like for CHH specifically, you know, is it something that could be a positive just to try to get out there more?
I think with the internet, it's gained a reputation of corny, like being corny or being extra or too much. Because whenever you tell somebody, oh, a Christian remix, they immediately think of that one video where that girl tried to redo a Beyonce song, or that one guy tried to read, you know, like
the Christian parody stuff.
So you're really like choosing, if you want to go that route, I mean, you really got to go above and beyond to go over these mountains.
Facts.
I mean, that's not just a spiritual level. You're talking about a business level, branding level.
Across the board, yeah.
It's I guess the best way I could describe it is like you're choosing to go straight into like the crossfire, you know, danger zone. I don't know, like, but I guess if that's your thing, and you're confident in that, then I mean, I'm not going to stop you.
Well, let's go back to the scripture then for the day. And trust in the Lord. Lean not to your own understanding. So if you're everything that Val just said, everything that Zero said, everything that we talked about tonight, if this is a space that you're headed into, you need to be sent into that space. This should not be something that you're just volunteering to go and do because of the level of adversity. You're opening yourself up to criticism, right? From the body, from the mainstream secular space, spiritually, naturally, legally binding, spiritually and naturally, the infrastructure, the industry, the independent space, like you're putting yourself adverse to every path, mode, method, vehicle. Like if this is a space you're going into, you should only be going into this space knowing that 1,000% this is something that God has told you to do. Because otherwise, you are putting yourself at a disadvantage. No matter how dope you are, no matter how cold you. And again, even to Val's last point, like if this is something that you're going to do, like you got to be extremely above average to be able to pull it off, consider regardless of your platform. Because after a while, and with the world being so fickle, even if you've got a big enough platform, eventually people are going to get tired of you doing what you're doing. Music in and of itself, we're in a different space. This is a different time. And back in the day where it used to be cool to rock over other cats' beats, now because everybody is so, branded minded and my bag. Now the camaraderie isn't there anymore. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not cool to go and to rock out over other people's record. I want to pay homage to, to the big homie, blah, 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 blah. Nah, dog, you didn't ask permission first, bro. So we finna yank this off there, especially, you know what I mean? Like we finna shut this down because, it's a business move, my guy. And we ain't got no contracts on this, bro. We ain't signed nothing verbally. Hey, you didn't holler at me, dog. So no, we finna shut this down. You know what I mean? Like we're in a different space now. And so it's really, really, really tough. To be successful, well, this is like your one trick. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to have more to do than just this.
But we want to scream it's hip hop. We want to scream it's hip hop, KD.
Yeah, okay.
Come on.
Yeah, it didn't be like for the culture.
I know Thizzle had a band or something remake, like some Biggie record. I don't know if you ever heard that. But he redid it in a way where it's actually his, like because it's different instruments and whatnot.
Thank you for listening to this month's episode of the 520 Collective Show. We'll be back next month with another great installment. Go to 520collective.com and sign up for our newsletter to keep up to date on what's happening around here and catch past episodes you may have missed. Let's go.